Hi, what's up? Good morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're listening to this. I am excited to come again with another episode. Well, it's been quite some time. A lot has been going on, literally. Um, so I've been sharing more content on my IG. If you don't follow me on IG, you can follow me at Super Secho. Super as in superwoman. Secho as in my name. Setso. Super Secho. I've been sharing more about business strategy, branding strategy, and all that good stuff. So you might want to check it out. But with regards to the podcast, we've been recording some great episodes that we're going to release soon. And also, getting some interviews and yeah, some good background work has been happening that you're going to see soon. So thank you for sticking. Today, we're going to talk about why it's actually a great thing to collaborate with your competitors in business. Most people would say, why would anyone want to collaborate with their competitors? And this is the number one question we're going to try to respond to in this episode. We're also going to share some ways you can collaborate with your competitors for your own advantage and also to serve your customers better. And then, yes, some more tips and hacks in the subsequent episodes. So let's get right into it. Dear ambitious African, this is your host, Secho. In this podcast, we will discuss everything about our journeys and experiences towards achieving our goals for life and work as phenomenal change leaders in our varied communities. We will feature other ambitious Africans crushing it through arts, social activism, tech innovations, entrepreneurship, and positive lifestyle and holistic well-being. We are the generation that is redefining Africa as we know it, and as an ambitious African, now is the time to get involved. Give us your feedback and ideas for our next podcast, and let's keep the conversations going. See you inside. First thing you want to consider when doing business is doing some bit of market research. Typically, that market research would be to assess if there are people out there who would want to buy your product or your service. But then, of course, you also want to know what already exists on the market. What are the already existing alternatives to your solution that someone else isn't doing or someone else is doing yet has different mechanisms that you feel do not solve the problem. In actual fact, in most cases, business ideas or great business ideas come from reviewing the existing market. Once you review the market and then you sort of understand what is happening, what's working, what's not working, that could give you the perfect idea to solve that stickiness that your competitors are not solving, probably because they're too big to be able to solve it in their capacity, or probably also because they don't have the kind of expertise, skill set, experience that you have to solve that problem in a smarter way. And so market research is very important in assessing really who your competitors are, what alternatives exist out there, and of course, how they are serving their clients that you perhaps could do better if you're targeting the same client or a similar client base. So we mentioned market research from the beginning of this episode, partly because as you're researching your competitors and you're doing your SWOT analysis on what are their key advantages over you and what are your key advantages over them, you want to switch the perspective into saying, oh, these are the advantages they have over me that perhaps I can't compete with them on. Perhaps I don't have the capacity, I don't have the funding, it's not in my line of business with how I want to even grow the business. And so if they have these advantages over what I do, yet I have these over them, then perhaps these are how we can collaborate, or these are how this is one way we can collaborate. So let's say, for an example, right, you run a school, and you have like you have an online school. You're teaching kids how to do something. It's an online class that you're running, or an online school that you're running. But you have, your competitor has, let's say, just the physical brick and mortar school, and so you would say, for example, or you don't see yourself running a brick and mortar, but your competitor has a brick and mortar. And so, in the cases where people in your audience start speaking to you about perhaps bringing their kids to your physical location, you could rather sell to them your competitors, quote unquote competitor, right? Um, Sell them their, offering, or their school, to, basically sell them the prospect of sending their kids to that school because it's highly recommended. You've gone to their curriculum, you know that they're doing amazing work in the brick and mortar space, and so you recommend that to your client, so that um, maybe you can get a commission out of it. Maybe they can sort of work with you to develop a program where you can run like a physical class in their school, but they take care of just the kids. You just come in to teach, you take a commission on the two where you're teaching, and then as well, you're taking your commission. You know, that's just one way to alleviate your back your brain fog of if whether or not you should get a brick and mortar space. Okay, so that's one way you can actually partner with your competitors to deliver, great service. One reason why this is important, if I haven't shared already, is the fact that, well, your buyers would, if they had the chance, they would partner together to buy from you and get a good deal. If you're running a promotion and you said, oh, for a group of 5 or for a group of 10, you are discounting at a particular rate, and your buyers knew themselves, they would bundle and buy your bundle. Do you get it? It wouldn't be a far-fetched idea for them to come together to buy your bundle. So in that same vein, it shouldn't be a big deal to collaborate with your quote unquote competitor to serve your clients. At the end of the day, there might be differences in how you serve your people. You might be afraid that they will steal your competitor, your customers, but it's not always the case, okay? You want to understand it as a partnership. When you build a partnership with your competitor, you sort of open up the space to protect yourselves as, players in the space, or as as players in the space. Because if your buyers are also not necessarily, partnering to buy from you, chances are they are pitching you against each other. And yeah, which brings me to the second reason, right? That the second reason, apart from the share idea that for a good deal, your customers would collaborate to buy from you, and so you should consider collaborating with your competitor to serve them. The second reason to that is your customers are pitching you against each other, with you and your competitor. They are comparing prices and they are comparing services and trying to find the best deal. And so them knowing that, oh, you know what, if we sort of silently pitch the two of you against each other, one of you is just going to bend and give me a good price, which has always been the case, that, competitors or players in the space try to listen to the market instead of just getting in a room, speaking together, and then safeguarding on a price point that works for each other with different value added services that would not impact the price. And it happens in most industries. In marketing, I know, in some parts of the world, agencies speak to each other. They collaborate on projects, and they lock down prices when they are, speaking to specific clients, right? It's the same in legal in audits, auditing firms, legal firms. There's also, I know for some manufacturing firms, right? Some manufacturing companies also speak to each other, especially when they are making the same product. They try to, as much as possible, peg their price around a certain price point so that it doesn't go so far fetched from creating a standard for both, competitors to win, right? That's the same way you want to play as a small business. You should be able to speak to your competitor, have that, mutual respectful relationship where you see what they're doing, you appreciate their work, they also see what you're doing, and you are sort of solving problems that perhaps they can't solve, and they are also solving some parts of the problem that you necessarily can't solve. And so bringing yourself together makes it easier for you to also peg your price at a point that is realistic to your worth and realistic to how you want to serve your clients, right? So you definitely want to consider that, because your customers are already pitching you against each other. And so it might just be good to not be in this rat race of a competition, dirty competition, if I can call it that way, trying to compete on price and beating down the price, when you can just get in a room with them, get on a call with them and say, you know what, if you're selling your fabrics at this point, at this price rate, okay, let's agree not to go beyond this price range, right? You can add any value, any whatever you do, I will be doing same here, but we can lock the price around this point so that the standards of what we are doing, because then, like the fabric example, your customers would then not discredit any of your quality in terms of product. That's the second reason. The third reason, um, it's just the basic principle that why compete if you can collaborate, if you can see, if you can assess, the pros and cons of collaborating, and describe that against the point of competing, right? You both can, well, it might not necessarily be you, but just you, or you and your competitors, even on the entire market space, right? You can look at other people in the value chain, or who work along the lines of what you do, and consider, if I'm going to compete with them, how much will it cost me? What opportunities am I losing because of competition? If I partnered with them or collaborated with them, how can I maximize that? And if there is room for maximizing that, why am I not considering it? Just the mere point of perhaps there's an opportunity you are missing just because you are, you know, yeah, you have your head bent, bended down, just doing your work, not looking ahead of you or looking around you to see what are these opportunities that exist. You might be shortchanging yourself. Just the mere fact that there are some opportunities out there worth considering should be a good enough reason on why you should partner with your competitors, right? Now, I've mentioned how you can begin partnering with your competitors in locking down price. I've also mentioned how it's also important to just create a standard so that within your space, the two of you, the three of you, or the four of you, are given a good representation of what your industry looks like, and setting the standards at that particular point. Now, how can you compete? On what basis can you partner with your competitors? One is on price, definitely.